So I was listening to one of my books this morning, and on my way to work. So I'm driving right now, and it was talking about intuition and how the intuition happens. Your gut feeling and your intuition happens so fast, and it's subconscious that your conscious doesn't have an ability to keep up with it. So it's one of the reasons why you have that feeling. You can't, it's easy to deny it and it's easy to dismiss it because it happens so fast that your conscious mind can't keep up. So how do you use intuition to overcome or avoid whatever it is that, conflict avoidance, let's go with that. You have to use your intuition to make sense of your environment. Your subconscious is picking up on your things in your environment that is telling you something, that you're in danger, for an example. And it's happening so fast, you're not recognizing it. So to be able to use your intuition, you have to ask why. You have to get curious, and you have to allow your conscious mind to catch up to your subconscious mind and to make sense of your environment. That is a big aspect of situational awareness. Making sense of your environment. It's not just about looking around over your shoulder and things like that. That's you have to look around to get an idea of what your environment looks like. But when you visualize that, you're like thinking you're always looking over your shoulder. Like you're always expecting somebody to be behind you. That sort of thing. So it shouldn't be a paranoid sense of feeling. It might start off that way at first, but the more that you can make sense of your surroundings, the less paranoid, at least I have become, because I can make sense of it. It's not, I have this feeling and I don't know what to do with it. It's, I have this feeling, let me figure out why. Let me get curious. So, like a kid, like a 4-year-old or something, like they're curious about their environment. Get curious. So, I wanted to tell a story about an encounter that I had and kind of go down the what if path. So I was in Washington State a week or so ago, and we were driving through town. We were trying to find a place to eat. Well, I pulled one up on my map, and we were on our way to there. And along the drive, we were in this town that was kind of run down, and I don't know, it just didn't look like a very nice place to be. The streets and everything were all tore up, and just the environment was just kind of like eh. And the people around in the environment also showed those same characteristics. There's nothing wrong with that. I grew up out in the country where people wear clothes with holes in their shirts and everything. I'm not there's an aspect of your environment and judging your environment or a person and then making sense of it. So just because the environment is or the people are disheveled or whatever doesn't mean that it's a bad place. It just means that I'm aware of it and I have established a baseline. Okay, so continuing that on, driving down the street to this restaurant we picked out, there was this gentleman walking along the street, and he was disheveled. He had a backpack on his back. He had rolled up blankets in it. Looked pretty dirty, and maybe he was homeless. He was also very red complected, and so we were talking about, us in the car, my family, we were talking about how red his skin was and how he had probably been out in the sun a lot, and so on and so forth. So a few moments later, we approached the restaurant we were going to, and when we were getting out of the car, I mentioned to my dad that this place might be a little rough, and he asked why. And I said, well, it's just because of the little things in the environment that I've been picking up, and the people and things like that. The cars in the parking lot were kind of run down, and the people in the parking lot were kind of looking the same way, and there was a pretty strong smell of weed in the parking lot, and it's just an environment that I need to pay attention. I don't pay attention to all environments, but so go inside and sit down at the table, And my dad and my husband go to the bathroom. I'm sitting at the table with my 2 younger boys, one's 13, one's 5, and I see the guy from the red guy walk into the restaurant and approach the hostess and start talking to her. I couldn't hear what he was saying. I could just tell he was louder than anybody else in the room, so I could hear him talking, just not what he was saying. There was something about him walking in the door that started, my heart started pounding a little bit. It was kind of weird. I got a little adrenaline. So, sitting there, kind of keeping my ear on him, really. He's just kind of over to my left, and we're sitting at this booth that's kind of like in a horseshoe, and it's kind of hard to get in and out of. And I told my son, as this man's still talking to this lady, he's getting a little louder, and I told my oldest, I said, hey, just scoot your butt to the edge of the seat so that way we can leave quickly if we need to. And he's awesome, so he's like, okay, got it. And so I had my 5-year-old in my lap, like off to my left here. So then my husband comes back and he sits to my left at the edge of the booth, and I explained to him, it's like, hey, just keep your eye on that guy over there, and it's the red guy, and he's talking to the lady, he's just getting a little loud, and so on and so forth. So now we're both kind of paying attention to him. So there's this concept called Cooper's Color Codes of Awareness. There's certain levels of awareness that to consider. So condition white is just, you're not paying attention, you're in la la land. Condition yellow is a step up from that, which you're relaxed but aware. That's pretty much how you should be all the time you're out in public, or carrying a weapon on you for sure. Then there's level orange, which is a step up from that, which is you've identified a potential threat and you just more focused on it. Condition red, which is you're taking action. So we'll go through these. So I am now in condition orange. Me and my husband are in condition orange. We're paying attention to this guy. We've identified an anomaly in our environment. That's it. We've identified an anomaly, and we're just paying attention. We're asking questions and paying attention. So by now, like, the what ifs are starting to go through my head, and I'm like, okay, I've already established where the exits are, but now I'm considering one of the emergency exits because, I knew it was there, but the emergency exit, if this guy starts getting belligerent, I'm visualizing us going right out that emergency exit, which is pretty close to us, which is awesome. Anyway, so my dad comes back and sits down at the table at the other side of the table, and he's kind of wondering what we're talking about. So we say, hey, we're just keeping our eye on this guy, yada yada. He's like, oh, I've dealt with guys like him before, it'll be fine. And he's probably right. Like, it's probably fine. But I did not want him to chest bump with this guy. I did not want him to engage with him because I don't know what state of mind he's in, and what he's capable of, and I'm perceiving him as homeless, and homeless people don't have the same desire to follow the laws as normal people that have a livelihood and a house and things like that, because they have less to lose. So I just said, hey, let's not. And so we're sitting there chatting, and then the waitress comes back over to the table, and she's standing at the edge of the table wanting to take our order. And my husband asked her if that guy was a regular, and she said no, that's his first time there. Well, I kind of wish that he was a regular, because then I would feel a little bit more at ease that they know how his tendencies and things like that. But he's brand new there. And she said, well, we did tell him to be polite because there's kids in the building, and we don't want him to scare anybody away. And okay, fine. And so she started to take our orders, and she came to me, and I couldn't even say anything because I was just like thinking, like, I don't know about this. And my heart's still racing, by the way. This guy just got me all worked up. So as she's trying to take our orders, sure enough, this guy comes over and puts himself in between the table and the waitress. So he is right up close to us. Like, I could just reach out and boop his elbow if I wanted to. When he is reaching forward and waving a $20 bill in the waitress's face, like, here, just take this. And hearing him talk, I could tell that there was something off. Maybe he was on drugs, or maybe it was a mental thing, or whatever the case is. But he was not acting normally, and he was getting me more anxious. So when he reached over to wave that $20 bill in her face, I noticed that there was a slight bulge in his waistband. And I couldn't tell what it was, but typically tools of violence are kept in waistbands. So I'm going to make the general assumption based off of my knowledge that was probably a weapon, whether it was a knife or a gun, I don't know. So luckily he went away. On his own, he turned around and walked away because she was like, oh, I'll get with you in a minute, go sit down, yada yada. So he went away. But that was the point where I made the decision that there was too many things going on in the environment that I was not comfortable with, and I did not want to see where it went. It was kind of weird for my general perception, a homeless looking person to be waving a $20 bill in the waitress's face. For what reason, I don't know, but it was a very odd situation. And he's unpredictable. If he's on drugs or something, I don't know. He's unpredictable. He could get angry, and in my opinion, he had a weapon on him. So what if my dad stood up right there and decided to, hey buddy, why don't you get out of here? Why don't you go away? We don't need you here. We got kids. And this guy said, what are you talking about, man? I'm not doing anything. I'm just trying to get my order and yada yada. Well, you're disrupting my family and blah, 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 and you shouldn't be here and you need to go. What's your problem? And what's your problem? And then they go back and forth and they chest bump, and to the point where this man decides to pull that tool out of his belt. I don't know him. I don't know his ego, and I don't know his challenges in life. I'm going to be a compassionate individual and decide to avoid conflict and let him be him and just go away and remove myself. Luckily, my dad didn't do that. I am so happy because my heart was pounding in that moment. I was so nervous that he was going to stand up and chest bump with this guy. If I didn't have the kids there with me, I still would greatly discourage this, and I still would not want that to happen for my own safety and my husband's safety and my dad's safety. But my kids made things way, way, way worse. It's gut-wrenching to think of what that could have escalated to. Okay, so that didn't happen, so we decided to leave. And we're walking out the door. We did have to walk past him to get out the door. So that was another decision I had to make. Do we go out the alarm entrance, or do we leave out the front door? Well, the alarm entrance would have made an alarm. And at that point, there was no emergency. I felt like there was an emergency in my chest. But I had to logically make sense of my world and decide that I didn't need to exit the emergency entrance because there was no threat of violence at this point, and I had to put my emotions down and make sense of my environment logically. So the front door was right up ahead, so we headed towards the front door. And the guy followed us. Once we passed him, he followed us out the front door. So I made mention to my husband, and I said, okay, let's go. We need to get quickly into the car, and everybody wants to ask why. It's like, what's going on? Why are we leaving? We didn't order our food. And we had a conversation in the car after that. It's like, look, just listen and let's move. We can ask questions later. So as we get in the car and we're driving away, that man is standing at the entrance of the restaurant with his hand in his pocket, and it was kind of weird. He was like holding up his pants from the inside of his pocket. So I don't know, maybe he was holding his weapon up from the inside, but his hand was absolutely on that spot where I saw the bulge in his waistline. And what if he would have approached us? I'm glad that he didn't, what if we would have stuck around knowing that he was a potential conflict and things were to have escalated, and I didn't have my tools on me because I was in Washington State, but let's just say I did. Let's say this was in Missouri, and I did allow the situation. I didn't trust my gut, and I didn't leave, and I allowed the situation to get to a point of violence. Am I going to be questioned in court? Because they're going to ask you, what led up to this? What were you thinking? What were you feeling? And everything. And what led up to this? And why didn't you go away that first inkling that something was off? I would have a hard time answering that question. I denied my gut. I denied my instinct. And you're never gonna, I'm not saying never, you're not You're not always going to know when you trust your gut that it was the right thing to do. You don't get rewarded. It's not a negative consequence, but it's not a positive reinforcing one. You don't get a dose of a dopamine from trusting your gut if you never experience, a positive consequence. So you just have to know that your gut did the right thing and steered clear of violence or danger. That's what it's for. So anyway, trust your gut, develop a good baseline, get curious about your environment, and don't be afraid to follow your intuition and keep you and your family safe. Because you would get negative consequence if you didn't follow it, and you should have. I'm not saying that it's always right. Your intuition always has your best interest. Always. That's what it's for. Might not always be right, but it always wants to keep you safe. It's our job to train our conscious mind to recognize our subconscious mind and how to make sense of our world and make good decisions. Have a great day.